Hey everybody, Joey Boy here, the Joe you can trust, back with a Walking Dead Roast 5 video, featuring the third day of Buildmas. Welcome back to the 12 days of Buildmas, in which I make team comps from the community's rosters out there. Combined with weapons and combat mods, I will do a range of somewhere between 3 or 4 team comps for the video's sake, but without further ado, let's begin. On the third day of Buildmas, the community gave me 3 tanks of Minnows, 2 bubbly bubbles, and a team build video for Mk23. First tag team, we're gonna go with a range beatdown team, mainly to beat down some reds and blues. With the roster that MK has, the best option that I see here for a leadership skill is going to be Andrea. This is going to allow turn 3 adrenaline rushes for all 76 and under AR survivors. In the case that there is an 85 AR survivor, we will want a command if we want to use that 85 AR survivor come turn 3 with everybody else. To add more damage pressure to this team, we're going to take this premier survivor that MK was fortunate enough to get, being Bleed Negan. Having a 66 AR gives you a good chance if you're getting 40 AP per attack, to where if he happens to get finger blasted by the AI turn 1, there is a pretty good chance that he will possibly be able to use his adrenaline rush that turn, getting the bleed damage and the burst damage out as soon as possible, to make sure you waste less basic attack turns, so then you can use those basic attacks elsewhere to kill the next survivor. Next up, since we're going to be seeing more and more Ericas throughout the time of this game, we are going to want to bring Tyrese. With Tyrese also having an impair active skill will also help stagger adrenaline rushes. Since we are bringing Tyrese and we want all the adrenaline rushes to pretty much synergize together at the same turn, we're going to want Command Sadiq. This will allow Tyrese to use his adrenaline rush to be commanded turn 3, to also be used with Negan and Andrea. For the last spot of this team, since we don't have a healer to bring in with this team that will synergize very well with it, we're going to take a revived survivor with us, and that's going to be Hunter. In case anybody happens to flop within the first 2 turns, come turn 3, Hunter should be able to revive this survivor, and in reviving a dead survivor at this point, they should be ready to pop their adrenaline rush off as soon as they come up from being revived. Weapons with this team is going to be very offensive, with Andrea, Negan, and Tyrese. The only difference in the guns here is Andrea is going to have a 20% AP at the start of the match, so she does not have to be commanded turn 3 to use her adrenaline rush. She'll be able to use it straight up, as the 20% AP will give her enough come turn 3 so where she doesn't have to be commanded, unlike Tyrese, which will have to be commanded, as we bring a double attack weapon to help land decapitates. Sadiq's weapon is going to be tanky, as for the most part he's not going to be attacking, he's going to be commanding others, and we're going to make the special weapon mod on Sadiq's weapon impair when taking damage, as he's not going to be attacking much, so odds are he'll probably be taking damage more often than attacking. Hunter's weapon is also going to be tanky with the first stat, but we're also going to want some AP when attacking. In case things happen to go south very quickly on this team, we're going to need to have that option to at least be able to command Hunter turn 2, just in case if we lost, say, Tyrese at the very get-go versus a revived team, as Tyrese dying early is no good. And as for the special weapon mod on Hunter, we're going to go with Impair when attacking. Since this team really doesn't have anything except pure brute force offensive pressure, we're going to need to put something, at least something in this team when we basic attack barrage somebody, so that we just don't trigger adrenaline rushes without someone on the enemy team sacrificing a recover active skill. As for combat mods with this team, the attack survivors are also going to have an attack setup as well. All attack versus their trait advantages, stun resist, and a twist with our combat mods, we're going to mix in some burns and bleeds. Since Negan does apply bleed, we can also stack more bleed on top of this, just to add a little bit more pressure in the bleed department, as bleed does not cause AP when it does damage. We're also going to bring burn on Sadiq, so we can have a bleed burn combo to make sure we can increase our chances of getting a turn 1 kill. We're going to have 2 resist mods on Sadiq and Hunter, as these are 2 pivotal characters to make a lot of things happen within this team, especially for Sadiq when we need to command Hunter, as an example, or if we need to command Tyrese to get some more damage output, so less adrenaline rushes come and hit us that same turn. And if our team is hurting and we have people dead, we're going to need that resist backup so that Hunter can continually use his adrenaline rush and he's not being stopped at all. Second attack team, we're going to be taking a more melee-esque team, mainly full of yellows with 1 green. Since we do have a team comp that is very strong versus killing a bunch of red defense teams, or a mixture of red and blue, we're now going to take an approach to where we're going to want to deal with mainly blue teams or yellow-blue defense teams. We'll first start everything off, since we're going to be rocking mainly yellow, we're going to use Rick Rise to Power. This will allow us to give focus for human shield and high single target burst damage. And at the same time, being able to apply elusive to AP starve the enemy is also a nice touch. Romanov for the second pick, as we're going to have a taunt on basic attacks with this team, which will be greatly beneficial, as the majority of people probably will have stun resist. Since we are going to be building a very glass canny team, because we're going to want that firepower to actually crush even the tankiest of defenses, we will want to bring in Carl to actually give us some sustain in case something happens to go wrong. We can have the sustain keep us in the fight longer. At the same time, we're also going to be able to put a stun on attack weapon on Carl to also now give this team taunt and stun. To make our damage dealers do more damage and guarantee a kill, as we're not going to have any decapitates on this melee team, we're going to bring in Sandy. She's going to have high single target burst with Waste Not to potentially kill 2 people with 1 AR. The defense down that follows afterwards will help her remaining teammates get kills faster. Sandy also has an Impair active, so now this team comp has taunts, impairs, and stuns. Last spot on the team is we're going to try to starve the enemy a little bit more for AP, while at the same time, since we're using Rick Rise to Power, if we bring in a yellow, we still will have this yellow survivor do decent damage, even though if we wanted to bring in a support survivor. To help this team all around, we'll bring in Guardian 2 Zeke. The shields will help stop enemy attacks for doing any damage whatsoever, and will stop them gaining any AP. This form of starving AP, plus Rick Rise to Power's elusive, can make for a very nice combination in thrashing your enemy without them basically even able to do anything, because they're having a very hard time gaining AP. And since this team is going to be heavy yellow, and we're going to be targeting a lot of blues for the most part, Guardian 2 Zeke will be a nice addition to this team, as he has Recover Impair, for those impair when taking damage weapons the enemy is going to be wielding. As for weapons on this team, our damage dealers Rick, Romanov, and Sandy are all going to be wielding pretty much the same weapons. The only difference is Romanov won't have absolute defense. We're going to keep the taunt that came with his weapon. Carl, we're going to go defensive weapon with a stun on attack, as this allows us to get 1 extra CC on our team in hopes that one of our 3 crowd controls won't get resisted. As for Zeke's weapon, we're going to go with a crit knife, leave the defense, we're going to add absolute defense. As for combat mods, we're going to take an attack setup with our attack damage survivors with their attack trait advantages, such as attack first blue for Rick, Rom, and Sandy. To add even more damage pressure to this team, we're going to be taking a heavy bleed and burn setup. As the quicker we're able to kill 1 or 2 people before adrenaline rushes go off through bleeds and burns, then come turn 3, when Sandy uses her adrenaline rush to lower defenses, that should pretty much be the end of the match. If we are to assume the burn is about 200, and each of these bleed combat mods do 100 bleed, we're looking at 500 combined burn and bleed damage per turn, which in some cases is an extra attack. This first defense team is not going to be made as a timeout team. Actually, neither one of these 2 defense teams will be made for timeout teams. They're actually going to be made for some sustain, but at the same time, there's going to be some offensive pressure on these to actually beat down your enemy, as I don't think in this free-to-play roster that there is enough survivors in here to create a full-fledged timeout team. In seeing these teams, I'm trying to match up roster to roster, basically tier to tier, as if a whale was to come and verse this roster, then really there's nothing to be learned here, because it's
Today, Junior?
It's an out-of-league thing, so kind of really have to throw that out the window here and just match within the same roster strength. But we're going to go with Carl first for his defensive leader and heal for sustain. As for the offensive pressure on this team, which also has nice utility as well, which is going to be a major glue to this team, is going to be his 2 Shivas. Both of these Shivas can wield stun claws, and once these Shivas start using their adrenaline rush, it literally is just a merry-go-round of you sitting there and doing nothing. You're looking at your game and it's AI versus AI at this point, and you might as well just hit autoplay and just hope that your team just wins. So, to help our Shivas out, as they're going to be the reasons why you're going to win this match on defense, we're going to need to give them 1 turn ahead projections, which is going to be a command, and we're also going to need them to have shields on them as well. As for the shield portion, we're going to bring in Guardian 2 Zeke. If one of the Shivas are barraged early and Guardian 2 Zeke procs a shield, we can guarantee one of those attack out of the 5 are not going to do any damage, which is going to help increase the longevity of that first Shiva before she flops over. If that Shiva was the first target, and Shiva did not die, then there is possibly a good chance that that Shiva that they're trying to kill will be commanded and then use her Adrenaline Rush. And then now at this point, are they going to finish the Shiva that can attack next turn? Or are they going to go for the other Shiva or other members of the team? Decisions that your opponent has to make are good, and the more you give them, the better, because one of those options is going to be a very shitty option that they're potentially going to pick. As for the command portion of this team, we're going to bring in Command Sadiq. Granted, I would prefer Command Glenn, but MK currently does not have Command Glenn, so Command Sadiq's going to have to take his place. And since this Command Zeke is not going to be benefiting from a leadership skill, we're going to need to build him completely tanky. As for weapon on this team, we're going to bring 3 stun on attack weapons. 2 of those are going to be on Shiva for claws, being an offensive weapon, and then we're going to have the last stun on attack weapon be defensive, and that's going to go on Carl. As for our Ezekiel, we're going to take a crit weapon, defense, and absolute defense. And as for Sadiq, we're going to be building completely tanky, and if he is the first focus, which he probably will be the weakest in terms of stats, we're going to throw an impair when taking damage weapon on him. So if he is the first to fall, hopefully we can impair some enemies to make their lives a lot harder and stagger their adrenaline rushes. As for combat mods, we're going to go 3 defensive sets, and on our Shivas, we're going to go 2 attack sets, as they need to apply the pressure, because once they start getting their stun and confuse carousel going around, having that offensive pressure, since they're not going to be able to use their characters willingly, will make thrashing them and beating them down easier and faster. As for the combat mods themselves, at this point, even for our Shivas, we're going to need to go a little bit tanky in the defensive side of things. As if we go 2 Glass Canny, even with a Carl leader, this would increase the chances of us losing a Shiva turn 1, which is something we do not want. Putting Grays on our Shivas and a mixture of different types of resist will help make, even if they try to bring a hard CC approach, that at least one of those CCs should fail, giving you an opening for a Shiva AR to eventually just start unwinding the enemy team. As for the second defense team, and the last one, we're going to go more of a ranged team here. We're going to lead it off with Red Zeke, and as much as I would like to make a complete timeout team with this, we're not going to take that route. What we're going to do here for our offensive pressure, which I personally have seen this and it works out extremely well, is we're going to go double Mirabelles. The reason for this being is if you do happen to get raided by greens, double Mirabelles are a very nice way of cleaning them out, seeing as it is a stun for 1 turn, damage to 3 with trade advantage. Bringing double Mirabelles to this team will not only give it somewhat of a longevity, considering that there's a lot of stuns on this team, this will also give this team a nice kill potential. Seeing as we're going to go just like we did with the Shivas in the last team, the Shivas on this team are going to be our Mirabelles. We will build them with offensive weapons, while at the same time, tanky combat mods. Since this team does have a healer already, adding a revive to it as well will put more pressure on the enemy to have to land decapitates at the end, and if they don't, then they're going to have to deal with the survivor coming up later. So we're going to bring in Hunter for the next survivor. With Red Zeke, both Mirabelles and Hunter, all with their ARs, 76 or lower, gives them potential to use their Adrenaline Rush turn 2 with a command. And to do this, we're going to need to bring in Sadiq. Now, once turn 2 comes rolling around, if either Mirabelles or the Red Zeke is commanded, this is a plus for our team. Red Zeke will give it sustain and some bonus HP, giving us enough time for the Mirabelles to start popping off, stunning our enemy, giving more time for Red Zeke to come back up again, apply more healing and bonus HP. Also, bringing in 2 Mirabelles will allow us to stay away from stun resist combat mods for the majority of our team. In the case that one of our Mirabelles or multiple people on our team happen to get stunned, we have 2 Mirabelles with recover stun. That's going to be extremely difficult to deal with. Weapons for this team are going to be tanky except for our 2 Mirabelles. Both of our Mirabelles are going to be attack, AP when attacking, and stun when taking damage. Red Zeke is going to be pretty much the same thing, but instead of attack, we're going to go defense, so we don't lose a nice sustained survivor at the get-go due to double attack blues. As for our Sadiq, we're going to go defense, HP. We're not going with any AP when attacking, as this guy is going to be pretty much commanding for the greater majority of the fight. To add some more specialness to him, we're going to have impair when taking damage, just like Hunter. As for the sets and combat mods for these survivors, I would give them all defense sets. And as for the combat mods, going HP, defense versus their trait disadvantages, stun resist for our Mirabelles, as they have recover stun. So if anybody else happens to get stunned, pretty much you can just wash that stun right off, because one of the 2 Mirabelles should recover it. For all these survivors, we are also going to want Grays, as we are coming very heavy red. And if 2 or 3 double attackers come, having that defense versus them, combat mod and Grays will help keep them alive longer. If Hunter is ever stunned, we're going to slap defense while stunned on him in case they try to take him out, which is going to make it extremely difficult to do so. Then come our team's turn, Mirabelles can recover the stun, and Hunter can use Adrenaline Rush if needed. Seeing as this team does have a little bit of firepower to it, heavy crowd controls I can see will be a good counter to this team, so bringing in a multitude of different types of resist mods and scattering them all across our survivors is a good call so that whenever they want to use a taunt to 3 or stun to 2 and pair to 3, at least we can have one of those fail somewhere in which they'll be able to use their Adrenaline Rush, causing massive mayhem to the enemy. And that's going to wrap up the video for the third day of Buildmas. MK, I hope this is what you were looking for, my friend, and if not, you know where to find me online, and we can go back and crack at it and get some more teams cooking in a way that will grant you more success. Next up in the video should be King of Blurry Face, and then after that will be Beast, and then we'll be moving on to the Dolphin and Whale section of the 12 Days of Buildmas. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video and made you laugh and forging anything positive, please give a nice karate chop to the like, subscribe button. Make sure you leave a comment down below. Sports greatly appreciated. And on that, I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye.